Um, Very interesting shir tonight. We're going to talk about both Chanukah um, as well as the Parsha. We're going to tie these two things in together to Ezra Hashem and see some beautiful concepts that Reb Nachman and Reb Nosson talk about. This is from the source of all of this is in the Kutei Halachos. It's Hilchas Hashkamas Haboiker. The halachas, the laws that pertain to waking up in the morning, and that's Halacha Dalet number 4. So that's the source of all of this. And there's some very interesting and powerful ideas. We're going to learn a lot about the idea of the power of the tzaddik, what that has to do with us, what that has to do with Hanukkah. This shir will serve as an introduction to Hanukkah as well. It'll serve as an introduction to understanding Yaakov's relationship with Yosef and Yosef's relationship with his brothers. So there's a lot of interesting things here tonight. Okay, I'm going to bring up a presentation over here that's going to help us. Here it is. Okay, and we'll see this soon. Okay, so we're talking about the idea of tzimtzum, of constriction, and of chachma, wisdom, which we call hasagas elikus. Hasagas elikus is the wisdom of Hashem. It's the wisdom of Hashem. It's understanding Hashem, right? If you want to have a relationship with somebody, you cannot have a relationship with them unless you understand them. And the Zohar says that all of us were created and born into this world in order to understand Hashem and in order to know Hashem. That's the purpose of all of creation. We are created in this finite world. We were created as human beings in order to get to know Hashem. And the only way that we can know Hashem to the level that we have potential to know Him is actually through the human experience. Rebbe Nachman talks about this in many, many lessons in the Quran. And there's a reason why the human experience is so difficult and why Hashem is so hidden. We're not going to talk so much about that idea, but the point is that there's this idea of hasagas elikus, of knowing Hashem. And the same way, if you had two people and they wanted to be friends, but they didn't really know anything about each other, right? So that would hamper their relationship. They couldn't truly be good friends unless they got to know each other and spend time. So that's the way it is with Hashem as well. In order for us to become close to Hashem and unite with Hashem, we have to know Him, and that's the idea of hasagas elikus. So we're going to talk about that tonight. That's going to be the major theme. All of us are born into this world. We need to know Hashem. All of our experiences are supposed to teach us how to discover Hashem and how to know Hashem. Now, Rebbe Nachman, in the lesson that this halacha is based on, he says that it's impossible for a person to be zoche, to merit hasagas elikus, this knowledge and this understanding, this perception of Hashem. It's impossible to merit that only through something called constrictions. So if you imagine the metaphor we use a lot is light. Blinding light. When someone's blinded by light, the light's in your face, you can't see anything. You can't make out what's in front of you. Imagine the greatness of Hashem. Imagine the wisdom of Hashem, right? How as human beings can we perceive Hashem? Hashem is infinitely greater than us. So to us, Hashem is a blinding light, and we cannot perceive Him. It's impossible for us. So the only way we can begin to perceive Hashem is through constrictions. These are called tzimtzumim, or kelim, or vessels. Right? When you have a vessel, it holds something, it pushes against it, it forms it. So that's the idea of a constriction as well. And we're therefore taught that when Hashem created the world, He shined a light down into the vacated space that would leave room for creation. And there was these 10 constrictions, which are the sfirot, the 10 lights. There's 10 constrictions, and each one, Hashem's light became more and more constricted in these various vessels. And then it would go down to the next vessel, the next vessel, the next vessel, until it went down to Malchus, which is our world, Hashem's kingdomship. That's the basic idea of the 10 spheres. So in order to explain this a little bit, one of the examples that's given by Rebbe Nachman in the lesson is the human eye. So I found this on a photography website, and just gives us a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about over here. Something that anyone who's a photographer, I'm sure, would understand better than I do, but I think it's helpful. So it says, why do we need to bend the light to create an image? Okay, now I believe over here, if you look at the image on the left side, I think you can see my pencil on the left side. That's the source of what you're looking at. And that goes into, this is the lens in the middle, and you see it comes out at various different angles. So that it's been bent. The light is then bent in various angles. So the question is, why do cameras work that way? And the human eye works similarly. So it says, well, we don't need to truly bend the light at all. The issue is that the film sensor back wall of your eyelid is usually much smaller than the view we're trying to capture. So imagine you're looking at a mountain, and the mountain is massive. Now, how is your eye, which is so small, able to capture that vision so that your brain can process it and that you understand and perceive what you're looking at? So it says, therefore, we need to bend the light to reduce the size of the image. How else would you get an entire mountain or building to fit into a camera sensor without bending the light? So that's it. So the right side over here is the back of the eye. That's what it would represent. And the light is being bent, and it's reproduced inside of the eye. And that's the pupil. It looks black, but it's actually a space in the eye, and the light goes through there, and it's then somehow reproduced by bending the light within the eye itself, so that the brain can then process that image. So what's happened? There's some kind of massive image, some kind of light that you are trying to perceive, but it's too big for you. So Hashem gave you an apparatus called an eye, and that eye, it bends it, it makes it smaller, constricts it. And the eye is a vessel which constricts the light, and the light it fills that vessel, which is the eye, in order so that your brain can now perceive what you saw. Now, the light has been reproduced, so what you're looking at is not the original light, right? The original light, which was here, it's been bent, it's been reproduced. You're not looking at the original. However, what you see is coming from that source, and your vision is true, it's not false. So that's the idea of constrictions over here. It's very interesting. On the one hand, you are seeing what you're looking at. On the other hand, it's been reproduced. It's not exactly the same. It's not in its pure form. It's probably not as powerful as what you saw. And that's the way it is with Hashem's light, where the metaphor we use, that he created the world by shining his light into the vacated space. It works in the same way, where each sphera, we perceive some of Hashem's characteristics, and it gets there lower and lower and lower into our world, where a person can only perceive Hashem through faith. You need to have faith in order to see Hashem in this world. That's how hidden he is. So all of the components are there, but they've been reproduced, and they're not in their original form. And therefore, in our world, it's up to us to have emunah to be able to reproduce them in a way that we understand and see what we're looking at. When we see Hashem in our lives, we see Hashgacha Pratis, we see Hashem's hands in our lives, we're actually reproducing that light in a way where we finally see that original vision. And it's true, because everything that's created was from Hashem. But it's not the same as the original light that was shining. So I hope that explains kind of the idea of constrictions. And we're going to give more examples of this. And I think one of the easiest is just imagine the Aleph base, right? If someone wants to learn Gemara, I don't know how many people here have studied Gemara before. The Gemara is very difficult. You have to know a lot of concepts. There's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of different methods of how you analyze the psukim in the Torah until you understand what the rabbis are talking about. It's a very complicated text. In order for one to be able to learn this, they have to have many, many introductions, where the material has to be broken down. And in fact, who's the one, I believe Reb Nosson said this once, he had tremendous appreciation to two people, to Rabbi Nachman, who taught him everything, and to his Aleph base teacher, the one that taught him how to read. Because without the Aleph base, those Aleph base, they construct every single thing in the Gemara. Without the Aleph base, you can't read the Gemara, you can't understand what the text means. So all of the Torah is composed of the Aleph bases, right? But it's not the same thing as understanding the deepness and the profundity in the Torah. On the other hand, it is, because they're all spelled out in Aleph base. And that's how it works with Hashem's perceiving Hashem, perceiving the divine. It gets broken down smaller and smaller till it's an amount that we can understand. But that amount that we can understand is not as great as the original source. It's a reproduction of the source. I just want to make sure that that's clear. That whole idea over here is clear. We have this in life many times with different things, where we want to understand them, and someone kind of simplifies the material to us, so we now understand all of the elements. But it's obviously not the same as the great expert who understands everything at its source. Is that idea clear? The idea of constriction of vessels. Just let me know. Someone can can let me know if they get this, because the whole lesson is really based on this idea of understanding that something can be very profound, very deep. And just like the eye, we reproduce it on a lower level so that it's something that we can grasp. It's not something that's blinding to us. Anybody out there wants to let me know if that makes sense to you? You like to example, makes sense. Okay. Okay, great. So just remember a great teacher that you had once, and there was this, think of a subject that you couldn't understand, and that great teacher came, and they broke down the material to you in a very simple way. Okay? So now you have a basic grasp of it, and now you could go to the next level of understanding it and go higher and higher and higher up. The same with the eye, it takes the mountain and breaks it down in a way that your brain can process what it's seeing. It's, it's that would be the idea. Or a camera does the same type of thing. Okay. Anyhow, so Rabbi Nachman now talks about the idea of, imagine someone who is very sick, a very sick person. God forbid someone becomes very sick, and they have a deathly illness. They're on their deathbed. Would they go to the regular doctor? Would they call up, go to the doctor who takes Obamacare, and it's easy to get an appointment, a walk-in clinic, and they have about 10 patients an hour? Would a person consider going to that doctor to cure them? Obviously, the answer would be no. None of us would do a silly thing like that. We have in New York a hospital called Sloan Kettering. Unfortunately, this is for people that usually have cancers, various cancers, and people, more often than not, they won't go to any other hospital but to that hospital, because they know that the greatest experts, are only in that hospital, and they don't want to go to a regular doctor. They consider that would be dangerous to do something like that. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to spiritual matters, many of us don't look at it the same way as when it comes to health types of things that are relevant to this world, maybe financial matters. We look at spiritual matters somehow. You can just go to like the local rabbi and ask the local rabbi what he thinks. And that's a very big mistake, because as we began with, Hashem's light was so blinding that he had to create this whole system of the Sfirot in order to even give us room for creation. And to know Hashem is knowing the deepest, Hashem's the source of everything. To have a knowledge of Hashem is so very deep. So we have to understand, when it comes to spiritual matters, they're no laughing matter, right? We're talking about our existence for all of eternity is based on what we do in this world and what we accomplish in this world. And spiritual matters are not to be taken lightly in any way. And therefore, what happens oftentimes is that a person goes to someone who's not qualified, and they have various issues with life, getting through life, gaining fulfillment in life, making the proper decisions, and they don't succeed. And that's because they went to like the local doctor. They didn't go to the great expert. And usually what happens is that after that, either they kind of go to sleep, they fall into a certain pattern, because maybe that guy was capable of giving them a band-aid, and they band-aided up their wounds. Okay, we're talking about like a tumor over here. I'm not talking about a simple wounds, but he gave a band-aid to their wound, or the person just gives up on religion altogether, thinking that they've tried and it didn't work out for them. And most people that are sleeping and that are distant, this is the reason for it. They did not find the right teacher. They didn't find the right Rebbe. They didn't find the one that knew how to cure all forms of spiritual illness. Only the great tzaddik who understands the neshama, who's gone up so high spiritually, he knows the source of everything, only he can write that prescription that knows how to heal that neshama. And this is a very great problem. So Rabbi Nachman says that the sicker one is spiritually, the greater a doctor they need in order to heal them. And we have to keep that in mind. If the world would have great doctors, spiritual doctors, they would be cured of all the spiritual illnesses that exist today. So that being said, Reb Nosson refers this whole concept, he compares this whole concept to Chanukah. Because we have this in Chanukah. What do we have? We have lights. Chanukah is the festival of lights. We have a menorah, right? The menorah has cups. You fill the cups with oil. and then you light the knowledge whatsoever. But then, when they have a flashlight, they shine it, and all of a sudden, everything in the room, right, it becomes something that they can perceive, something that they understand. So light always represents knowledge. In this case, it represents knowledge of Hashem. And you have the kalim, you have the menorah. The menorah holds the oil and the wick and everything like that. And then through all those devices, you're able to have beautiful light, and you can enjoy the light in your home, and it lights up the home, and we should all merit to have a beautiful yaltov together. But you have to have all these various parts in order to have this process. So if a person has light, but they don't have anything to hold the light, then the light just spills out, and they have nothing. They can't really have a proper light. It's impossible. That's why we have to have a menorah that has all of the various components to it. Who were the arch enemies of the Jews during Chanukah? It was Yavon, the Greeks. The Greeks are the total opposite of this concept. If you think about it, we know the Greeks are famous for their philosophers. Greek philosophy, Aristotle. The whole idea of the Greeks was to say that as a human being, we have such incredible knowledge that we can understand everything on our own. And if I see something and I don't understand it, then it doesn't exist. Or there's this idea of philosophy that can philosophize about anything and understand everything. Whatever you see is what you get, and I can come to some kind of understanding of it through if I'm smart enough and I have enough logic, right? And this attitude we even have today in our world today, where people say, if you can't see it, then you don't believe it, and people have this type of thing that they have this when it comes to Torah mitzvahs also. If they don't understand every detail of a mitzvah, so then all of a sudden they're willing to throw the mitzvahs away. So the idea of the Greeks was they appreciated wisdom tremendously. They appreciated the wisdom, the light of wisdom tremendously, but they didn't have any kalim. They weren't willing to have any level of constriction, a vessel to hold that light, that wisdom. They weren't willing to do that. And because of that, the Jews who became Greeks and Misyavnim, they were willing to throw away the Torah completely. And this is called Chachma Chitzonius. It's like an external form of wisdom. It's something that Nachman warned us about greatly. It's very, very detrimental to spirituality. A person thinks that they're able to understand everything and they're able to think about everything. That is very detrimental. There's a level of emunah that we have to have sometimes that says, this is not for me, I can't understand this, maybe I'll understand this one day. And the main way that that's expressed is by using our chachma, our wisdom, to do mitzvahs and to study Torah. The wisdom of the Torah, kiner mitzvah v'torah or, it says, that the candle's a mitzvah, and the Torah is the light. When we have the example of the menorah, the Torah and the mitzvahs are the things that keep our mind focused on and constricted in the areas where they're supposed to be. So that we study mainly Torah, and that's where we get our knowledge from. The Torah is a tremendous fountain of knowledge, but it's within a certain format. There's various laws that we study. Everything has different rules and regulations, and those serve as the kedim, they're the vessels for knowledge. The same thing with mitzvahs. When we put on tefillin or tzitzis, or we give, there's various rules and actions that govern, laws that govern the mitzvahs. All of these things, they give us the balance we need, the constriction we need, in order to then be able to receive the wisdom of Hashem. Because if one just tries to understand it, remember, everything in the world is made up of Hashem's wisdom. So the Greeks, what they saw was also the wisdom of Hashem. But because they thought they could look at everything and understand everything according to their human minds, they made tremendous mistakes. And therefore they're willing to throw away the Torah and the mitzvahs. Where on the other hand, if a person has wisdom, but they use the Torah as their guide, and use the mitzvahs as their guide, so that makes it so that they have the vessels to be able to receive the right measure of wisdom, that they can really appreciate it. Again, in the example of the over here of the eye, or the lens, right? There's a very, very powerful light. It's only afterwards, when it goes through the lens, which is this vessel, that the light gets redirected in a way that the brain can process it. For us, that lens is the Torah and the mitzvahs. The Torah and the mitzvahs, it redirects the light of Hashem in a way that, based on the level we are at, we can process that light so we can understand Hashem. Because Hashem's light is so great that if we don't have this vessel, then what we see, we won't even realize is godly. We won't even realize that any of this is connected to Hashem whatsoever, we'll just think that it's knowledge. We'll think that we're great. We'll think that we're Mr. Know-it-all. We know everything. That is the idea of the menorah and the lights. It's this whole process, which is understanding that Hashem is everywhere, and understanding that these are the vessels that help us receive this knowledge, so that we're able to process Hashem where we're at, so to speak, not Hashem, but the knowledge of Hashem where we're at, so that we can begin to understand Hashem and build a relationship with Hashem. And the people that do this was all revealed to us through the tzaddikim. The tzaddikim they're the key point to all of this is going to be the tzaddikim. Because it was only Matisyahu who fought against the Greeks. It was only him and the Kohanim, the tzaddikim. They were the ones that the miracle was revealed through them. They're the ones that are able to teach us how to process Hashem's light, how to have the right vessels. It's the tzaddikim that are able to reveal this to us. And so, if we think about it a little bit more about Chanukah, there is a halacha of menorah. Actually, I was in the grocery store last week, I think it was, and I was with a young friend, and he still appreciates free things. I've given up on anything being free in life. I know that if it's free, there's got to be some kind of strings attached to it. But he saw a sign free, so he went running over, and there were these papers that were hanging very long, and they have in Lakewood, they have these menorah stands where they sell menorahs and all kinds of things, wicks, oil, whatever you need for Chanukah. They have these beautiful stands. You can go there, and they're really beautiful and well designed. You can take whatever you want. So they had a sign free, and it was this ruler that was printed on a paper, and what it measured was 10 tvachim, 10 handbreadths. 10 handbreadths is the measurement, according to halacha. The menorah is supposed to be lit underneath 10 handbreadths. What's interesting about these 10 tvachim, and this was, by the way, a paper that you could hold up like a ruler in order to hold it up next to the menorah and see if it's below that mark. So the purpose of this is that it says that Hashem Shechina, His presence, never rested below 10 tvachim, which is very, very interesting. Here we go. We have halacha that says you have to light the menorah below 10 tvachim, and yet we know that Hashem Shechina never rested below 10. So why would it be that? And Reb Nosson talks, he reveals beautiful teachings about this, that it's specifically the idea on Chanukah that we're compared to cholim, to sick people on Chanukah, and Hashem Shechina, it comes to visit us and to light up our house specifically because of where we're at. This is what the tzaddikim reveal to us. So let's just give the example. Let's just talk first a little bit about the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. Okay, we have a mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. We'll get back to this. We're going to get back to the argument between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai about how many candles to light, and then we're going to talk about the parsha. So we have a mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. Everybody knows it's a mitzvah that Jewish people love to do. Unfortunately, I just actually spoke to a friend. He hasn't slept in about 2 days, and he's in Israel for only a few days, and he found out one of his friends in the hospital. He's finally going to go to sleep. He woke up really early this morning. He went to Hebron to daven with the deacon, and he's been up all day. Then he went to Meron, to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's graveside. He's been up the whole day. He's exhausted. He's finally ready to go to sleep. He gets a phone call that one of his friends is in Hadassah Hospital in Yerushalayim, and he's on his way to the hospital. What is it? Jewish people love this mitzvah. It's a beautiful mitzvah. And the mitzvah is to go to a sick person and to show them a beautiful face, to cheer them up, to show them that you care about them, to take care of all of their needs. That's the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. And it says actually that Hashem's presence rests on top of the head of the sick person. And in fact, there's a lot of halachas even because of that. We take this very seriously, and there's certain respect that's due because Hashem's presence is resting over there. And the idea is that when someone is sick, in order to bring them up, we show them a beautiful face. We show them how we care. We show them that we show them love. Our face is lit up. It's called Or Panecha, the light of the countenance, of your countenance. And this is the same thing that Hashem does to us on Chanukah. Chanukah is one of the Yom Tovim. It's one of the festivals that was given to the Jews when we were in exile, because the Beis Hamikdash, then we were in a state of exile from the Yavanim, from the Greeks. The other one is Purim, right? Someone who's in exile, they're away from their spiritual home, which is the Beis Hamikdash, is the house of Hashem, where Hashem's presence rested. So someone's been exiled, they've been exiled, they're very weak, they're sick, they haven't been home, they don't have their father to nurture them, and they're very, very weak. So these holidays are compared very much to a sick person. And Hashem specifically comes during this holiday beneath 10 Tvachim, beneath this measurement, where it says the Shekhinah never rested, because we are like the sick person in the hospital. When a king has a loyal servant, so if that servant wants to ask the king for a favor, he has to dress up properly, he has to ask at the right time, he has to have a perfect presentation, he has to say the right words to the king to convince the king, and then perhaps the king will grace him with his presence, and perhaps the king will listen to what his request is and grant it. But let's say that same servant is very, very sick. He's deathly ill. The king himself might go to visit that servant if he truly loves that devoted servant that he has. That's how it is on Chanukah. This is a time where these are the Yom Tovim of Golus, of exile. Hashem comes specifically to bring us up, to reveal the light of His countenance. He comes to us, that's where the light of the menorah comes to us to reveal that to us, specifically the lowest, because this is to pick up all the Jews, no matter how far we've fallen. It's specifically to pick us up at this time, in this Golus, in this sickness. That's when we need it, and that's when Hashem comes down to us, so to speak, to pick us up. That's why also the nights of Chanukah are the longest nights of the year. They're the darkest nights of the year. This is the time of year. It's the winter. We're beginning the dead of the winter. It's the coldest part of the year. All of this comes together at the same time. It represents a weakened spiritual state, and it's specifically now where Hashem says, I need to give them this Yom Tov, I need to give them this mitzvah, the menorah, where this light, and I will go beneath the 10 Tvachim and shine this light, because this is where they need me to pick them up, because this is where they're the weakest, and this is what's so special about the miracle of Chanukah. This light is so powerful and so special. It's been said to have taken, it's from the Or HaGanus, the light that Hashem created at the beginning of Bereshis. You can read about this in Bereshis. It says that Hashem hid it. He hid it away for the tzaddikim, for the future, time of the future. Mashiach will come. It's been hidden for their pleasure in the future. This light is taken from there. Because this light is so great, there's a couple of interesting things. One of them is that when it comes to the light of Shabbos, it's a mitzvah to partake of the light. In fact, you can't make the bracha Friday afternoon. You can't make the bracha on the candles unless you benefit from the light. The whole point of the Shabbos candles is to have shalom bayis. People should see where they're going. The home should be filled with light. That's the whole point of the Shabbos candles. What do we say when it comes to the menorah? Elo liroisim b'levad. Aneres halalu koydeshem. Ve'en reshus lishtamish bohem. Elo liroisim b'levad. These candles are holy. We have no permission to use them, only to look at them. Why is that so different? And that is the great miracle of Chanukah, that on Shabbos the whole world is me'ein olam habo. It's like the world to come. The entire world is elevated to a new spiritual realm, to a future time, and therefore the forces of evil on Shabbos are said to have been, they're already extinct. They've already been extinguished, and therefore this light, which is incredibly holy on Shabbos, one has to partake of it, because we've been elevated to this future spiritual time where this light is going to be part of our existence. But on Chanukah, it's not that way. Chanukah is in the middle of the week. You're allowed to do malacha. You can work on Chanukah. You're allowed to drive to work and everything like that. It's why, and we said it's in the dead of the winter. We said that Hashem comes below 10 Tvachim to reveal this light to us. And that's the idea. This light is so incredibly, it's so miraculous. This light, it's such awesome light. And the miracle is that Hashem decided to shine this special light in the lowest time. When we're at our lowest, the holiday of Golus, Hashem decided to shine that light to us then, which seems to be a direct contrast to what we say in Bereshis, which is that Hashem hid it for the time to come in the future, where the tzaddikim will partake in it. So that's why there's this argument that takes place in the Gemara between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Let's remember now the famous story of Hillel and Shammai, that there was a ger, a convert. He wanted to convert to Judaism, and he said, teach me the entire Torah on one foot. So Shammai said, what kind of attitude is this? You want to learn the Torah, you want to convert to Judaism, and you want to be taught on one foot the entire Torah? And he chased him out. What did Hillel do? Hillel said, "You have to that klal gadol b'Torah, should love your neighbor like your friend." And he was mekarev him. He brought him close, and he did convert him. So now the students of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel had a tremendous argument when it came to lighting the candles of the menorah. They all agreed that the miracle was greater every single day because they went into the Beis Mikdash. They found only one bottle of oil that had the stamp of the Kohanim that it was pure, and they lit with that one bottle. And then the second day was a miracle. The oil continued to light. The third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth, all the way to 8 days. So obviously, everyone over here admits that every single day, with the passing of every day, the miracle got greater and greater because this oil should have been lit for less and less. It should have remained lit for less and less time. So why is it then that we have an argument between them of how you light the menorah? Beis Shammai says that you light the menorah. They say poches v'holech. Every single day you start with 8 candles, and every day you light one less. That would seem to be counterintuitive. If the miracle was greater every day, then you should start with 1, and then 2, and then 3. They're showing more and more light every day. There's more of this miraculous light which is coming into your house underneath these 10 tvachim that we've been talking about the whole time. And in fact, that is the opinion of Beis Hillel. He says, Moisef v'hoilach. You have to add every single day. You start with 1, you go to 2 and 3 and 4. So Rebbe Nosson explains this in the most incredible way, and he says that really there's no argument about the mitzias. There's no argument about the facts on the table over here between the two of them. Everybody agrees when it comes to Chanukah that the miracle gets greater every single day. So where is the divergence in their? Where do they diverge in their opinions? He says that it's specifically this that we've been talking about because this light is so miraculous. It's the light from lost above and from future times, the Oregonus incredible light, and it goes in, and there's such a miracle that would shine into the middle of a regular day. So Beis Shammai looked at this light and said, "Wow, look at this miracle Hashem is performing. He's shining this incredible light now in the middle of a day when you know we have to be very, very careful with this miraculous type of light." Therefore, they wanted to hide the light from those that were not worthy of it. The same way that ger came from the Megayer and he said, "You have to have the right attitude. You can't just come here and say teach you the whole Torah 1 foot." They were tremendous deacon, and they said, you know, this light, there's so many miracles with it. It's such a holy light. We have to be very careful. We have to guard this light. And therefore, we'll make, like on the first night of Hanukkah, we'll light 8 candles. We'll make like there's this very, very holy light now. And then every day we'll take away from those candles. And even though more and more light keeps on, there's more of a miracle. So there's more light that keeps on coming down every single day until the 8th day, which is called Yossi Katz. It's a very special day. They said like this, we'll be able to hide it somewhat and protect that light. And people will think by the end of the holiday, there's not so much light left. So only when there's a lot of light on the first day, everyone's going to make this big party and light 8 candles, only then people think there's a lot of light, and there won't be as much light then, so we'll be protective of this light. So that sounds like a very good, if Hashem has something so precious, we have to be so careful. Look with the Yevonim, the Greeks, they took wisdom, which is an incredible thing, and they abused it. They used it for their own selfish purposes. So light, which represents knowledge of Hashem, we have to be very, very careful with this. It could be very damaging if there are things like Kabbalah, people learn it they're not roy, they're not fit to learn it. They can do tremendous damage with these types of things, and they're very protective of it. Beis Hillel, though, argued completely, and this goes back to the idea of the doctor we were talking about before. It's not just you that needs the doctor to heal you. If you're sick, you need to find the greatest doctor. It's only the greatest doctor that can heal you because this doctor has been given his tremendous knowledge in order to know how to heal even the weakest ones. That's why he's been granted. It's the onus is on the doctor himself. Hashem has granted this doctor this tremendous knowledge because now he's capable of lowering himself to the lowest point so that he can now heal even the sickest patient. That's the greatness of the doctor. That's why Hashem has given him this knowledge, and that's what Rabbi Nachman and many of the great tzaddikim, they understood that if I'm able to perceive this light, if I'm able to rise to such a high level, and I understand so much about Hashem, The more about Hashem I know, the more I know that He cares about every single person and He wants to bring every person close. And the more I am capable of sharing that knowledge with them so that I can draw them close as well. And that's what Beis Hillel said, because they learned from their Rebbe Hillel, who was able to take that convert who maybe started off on the wrong foot, but he was able to draw him and to convert him because that was their attitude. They understood that this is really Hashem's purpose. Even though it's true, Shammai with tzaddikim, and it's true that really minadin, really legally, really, according to strict judgment, the argument can be made that this light is too holy, and what are regular people doing with this light? That's true, they're not wrong, but still, if you rise to an even higher level and you understand what Hashem really wants, you understand Hashem is revealing this tremendous light specifically because, like He lowers Himself below those 10 tvachim, He wants to be Mekarvev, He wants to bring everyone close, and it's only through this incredible light, this incredible perception of Hashem, that the tzaddikim now know how and can now share that Torah to the lowest in order to bring them close. It goes hand in hand. The higher the tzaddik goes, the more he realizes what Hashem is all about, that Hashem is full of compassion, and he knows what Hashem wants, that Hashem wants to bring everyone close. At the same time, the more he knows of Hashem, the more he becomes an expert in healing the soul, and the more he's able to actually go down now to that level and bring back all of those neshamas. That is the role of the tzaddikim. Therefore, Beis Hillel says, Yosef v'hoilech. You have to add every single day. You have to show people that there's more and more miracles every day. Hashem is revealing Himself more and more. He wants us more and more. The more we have, the more is to be able to bring people and draw people close. Let us show everyone, Persume Nisa, let's show everyone this miracle that's happening so that everyone know that Hashem still wants them, even if they're not roy, even if according to the Ikar Adin, even according to strict judgment, the person is not fit. Nevertheless, Hashem still wants us. And we have to show this miracle more and more to them, bring those people closer so that they can do tshuva. And that is the purpose of all this, to bring Jews to do tshuva, to bring everyone back to Hashem. That's the purpose of all of this. That's the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim. That's why Hashem rests on top of the sick one. That's the reason why this miracle happens during the Golus. That's why it happens during the longest nights. All of it is to show Hashem's compassion, that the weaker we are, the sicker we are, the same way Hashem rests on top of the sick person's head, so too Hashem wants us, if we do go through difficulties, only to wake us back up. And Hashem has even more compassion for someone that's sick because He wants to bring them back to Him. Now, this all ties back into our parsha. We said Yosef v'hoilech is what Beis Hillel says. You have to add. Yosef is the same name as Yosef. Adding was the name of Yosef. Yosef was the tzaddik that personified this approach, who understood that his greatness was given to him as a responsibility and to enable him to bring back every single person, even those most distant, and to reveal to them that Hashem is waiting for them, that Hashem wants to heal the sick, Hashem wants to bring them back, that tshuva is available, everyone can return to Hashem. This was the role of Yosef, and this is what Yosef did throughout his life. The Torah this week starts off, it says, V'yeshiv Yaakov be'eretz Megurei Oviv. Yaakov dwelled in the land of his father's sojourn. Megurei, to sojourn, the place where Yaakov's fathers lived. Megurei comes from the word ger. It's the same letters. Ger, it's Gimel Resh, Gerim. What it means to, what's hinting to, what the Torah is hinting to over here, that Yaakov lived in the land of his father's sojourning, was the same way his fathers, who was referring to Yitzchak and Abraham, they were Megar Gerim, right? You know that Abraham had his tent, it was open wide and open from all four corners, and all would come and he would teach them to make a bracha and to thank Hashem and to believe in Hashem. They're all idol worshippers. So Abraham's job, and then Yitzchak followed him, their job was to be Megar Gerim, to convert people, to bring those distant close to Hashem. That was what their jobs were. So when it says that Yaakov settled in the land of his father's sojourning, this is what it's alluding to, that Yaakov continued in the mission of his father and of his grandfather. Then the Torah continues, Elu Tolos Yaakov, Yosef. These are the generations of Yaakov, Yosef. It specifically singles out Yosef as being called the generations, or the Tolda, which means the almost like the inheritance. It was specifically him. He inherited his father's mission. Yosef personified this mission of Yaakov. And this is going to be the reason why Yaakov loved Yosef so much. The main role of the tzaddik, the higher he grows, the more he's able to mekarev more people. This is the main role and the job of the tzaddik. Yaakov went in the ways of his forefathers. And then Ve'elu told us Yaakov Yosef. Then Yosef was the next step in this process. It says that in Yosef ben Sheva Esri Shana Hayaroya Es Achiv B'tzoy. When Yosef was 17 years old, he would pasture with his brothers the flocks. So there's two different interesting things in this pasuk. One is it calls him a roye, a shepherd. Who's called a shepherd? A shepherd is always the great Jewish leaders. The tzaddikim, the Torah always calls them a roye. Moshe was a roye. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, all of them were shepherds. They're shepherds because they had their sheep. They have to make sure the sheep don't go astray. When a sheep goes out of its way, they pull the sheep back. This is the law. This is the role of the tzaddik. He makes sure that he keeps all of his sheep, and he makes sure that they pass peacefully throughout wherever they have to go. Then it says also that he was 17 years old. 17 is the numerical value of the gematria of Tov. Why was it Yosef that was chosen to be the pastor? He had his brothers were also shepherds, but he's the one singled out over here. He was a shepherd with his brothers. He's the main guy over here. Told us Yaakov Yosef. Why is it Yosef? Why does he keep on getting chosen? Why does his father show him favoritism? Why does his father believe so much in him? Right? This is what led to the whole conflict between him and his brothers. And it was because he was 17 years old. He was 17. 17 is the gematria of Tov, good. Yosef was full of goodness. He was completely good. The tzaddik is completely good. And because the tzaddik is completely good, they're able to see that goodness in others. They're the epitome of good. They're the ultimate level of good. And therefore, even if there's a little bit of good in other people that are very distant, they're able to go over to the person and show that person the goodness. So that goodness starts to grow. It may be only a little flicker at the beginning, but then they're able to help that person grow that goodness so it becomes a raging fire. This is what the tzaddik is able to do. These are the nekudos tovos, the good points that Nachman spoke about so often. Yosef was the one that saw the good even in those that were so distant, whereas brothers were not able to see it to that extent. Only he was, because he was so good himself. So someone who's so good, they can recognize even a little bit of good in everyone. They have no emotions or anything else that's making them prejudiced not to see it. No, all they are is good. And therefore, whenever there's a little bit of good, they recognize it right away. And they can go over to that person and put their arm on their shoulder and show that person the goodness, because each of us has an neshama, so we're all intrinsically good. But that goodness that we all have sometimes can be dirty. It becomes sick, and it can be hard to see it. We're only alive by just this little bit that's holding us. But that's how Yosef is able to go to that little bit. He nurtures that until that becomes, until it becomes obvious to us, and that becomes our identity, and we get better. A little bit, sometimes a person feels a little bit better, and that gives them the power to really recover. Without that, maybe they would just give up and they would pass away. Physically, that's the way it works. That goodness, the tzaddik is able to reveal to each of us. It reveals that spiritually, through his connection to us. The closer we are to him, the more he's able to have that effect on us, to waken up that goodness within us, and also through his teachings and his advice, the svarim of Rabbi Nachman and the other tzaddikim. That's what they're able to do. The pasuk, it continues, Hunar es b'nei Bila, es b'nei Zilpa. He would be playful with the children of the shifchos, of the these were the co-wives, right? There was Rachel and there was Leah. Those were the two main wives, and then there was the two shifchos, the concubines, Bila and Zilpa. He was playful. What is the pasuk alluding to over here? The children of the concubines were, so to speak, considered like the lowest of the Jews. Rachel, we know Yaakov worked so hard for Rachel. He was so disappointed when he married Leah, but still Leah was Rachel's sister. The concubines were considered spiritually at a lower level. So the Torah is alluding to over here that he was playful with them. It means that this tzaddik, he doesn't stay on his pedestal and say, if you want to become successful spiritually, you want to grow spiritually, you have to come up to my level. The tzaddik, he goes off of his pedestal and he goes and he plays with these children. He plays with them, he figures out ways of showing them, even if they're completely lost. But he now takes those constrictions we spoke about before, this tensubim, the vessels, he finds various ways of constricting the light of Hashem, the knowledge of Hashem, in various ways that even a sick little child can handle and process. Before they know it, they start getting better. This is what the tzaddik is able to do. He, again, in this example of the light, he's able to take this light and he's able to redirect it in ways that even the sick person, who if you come to him in a straight way and say, just do tshuva, do the right thing. That's what the other tzaddik is saying, right? Do the right thing. If you do the right thing, then I'll share with you. If you do that, this person's too sick. They can't handle that now. There was the Jews after the Holocaust. The Red Cross came and all the various organizations. They finally came to help the Jews that survived the death camps, and they gave them food, very good food, nutritious food. But their stomachs weren't able to handle it, and they passed away from it. Many passed away. Many thousands passed away. They learned very quickly. You can only give them a little bit, certain foods, and slowly. That's what the tzaddik does. Like in this example again, he's able to bend that light. He makes these constrictions. He's able to give a vessel with the light, with the right amount, the right formula, even to the weakest, so that those weakest can process it, and slowly they can begin to get better and better. So he plays with them. He goes off of his pedestal. He acts like a kid. He does it in ways that are not obvious to them of what to do, because if it's obvious, they'll push away. Right? Their Yetzer Hara is raging. They're very sick. They can't handle someone telling them now to do 20 push-ups and run 100 laps and so on and so forth. He finds ways of getting that knowledge of Hashem into them. This is the role of the tzaddik. And therefore it says, Yosef Elikim es Karpasi. Yosef, it says about him that when he was born that Hashem has gathered Hashem has gathered my cherpa, my shame, my embarrassment. That's what Yosef is able to do. The embarrassment of Hashem, the Jews that unfortunately, those sheep that have gone astray, through Yosef, all of that is gathered up. Hashem's shame is gathered up, and it's no longer, because now they're able to return to Hashem. And it says, Yosef li ben acher. Hashem has added to me, Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Hashem has added to me another son, which means that Yosef's job is to add children. He adds children to Hashem by bringing these students close to him and teaching them. They become like his children. They become once again renewed. He renews the children of Hashem, gives on adding another child. Right? It says that if someone teaches someone Torah, then that student becomes like their child. And Yosef is able to teach everyone Torah. He had many students. They were all his children, and they all became the children of Hashem. And then it says, Yisrael oheves Yosef mikol banav, ki bein zekunim huloi. Yisrael loved Yosef more than all of his children, because he was a child of old age. Bein zekunim. So we understand now why he loved Yosef more, because only Yosef was able to continue his task, his mission, Yaakov's mission. Yosef was the epitome of all of this. Elu told us Yaakov Yosef. Ben Zekunim that he was a child of his old age. A zakin, an old man, is said to be someone who's very, very compassionate. Old people, they've gone through life, they've seen life's ups and downs. They're not so strict anymore like they used to be when they were younger. They become very compassionate and very accepting. Not accepting to accept evil, but compassionate to know that sometimes you have to look a little harder, sometimes you have to do things a little bit differently. Not everything is black and white. He was a ben zekunim. He was a child of his old age. Yosef had that trait of being like that old wise man who knew how to be compassionate. And therefore it says also, like his son is Pasim, the famous, Yaakov made for him the famous beautiful garment of many colors. This is the idea again of the garment. The garment is the keli, it's the vessel. It's this beautiful vessel that the tzaddikim have. They have these beautiful vessels. They're able to present the Torah in a constricted way so that it's palatable to every single Jew. That's the beautiful vessel. That is the beautiful lavush, the beautiful garment. The idea of a garment is it surrounds something, it contracts it, right? It's the beautiful garment. That's why the beautiful garment was given to Yosef. And that's why his brothers, they went and they ripped it off of him. That's what was going on. The conflict between these two brothers was really about this, that they took the side of Beis Shammai. They said, we are tremendous tzaddikim, and they were right, they were tremendous tzaddikim. They said, we understand what Hashem expects. And they were willing to push others away unless they became like them. But the others were not able to become like them on their level. They needed tzaddik Yosef that would see the little bit of good and turn that into a raging fire. And only the tzaddikim, they perceive Hashem on such awesome lights, only they then know how to take that light and redirect in a way where it's palatable to every single Jew. This was the greatness of Yosef. This is what Chanukah represents, Hashem himself, so to speak, his Shekhinah's presence. It comes even below the 10th Vachim. It comes even within the darkest night, specifically when we need it. That's what it is. Not just that it happened to fall out at that time. It was because we were in exile, because we were sick, because these are the longest nights of the year, because we were defiled. The Greeks had defiled the whole base of English. Because of this, Hashem's, because this is coming to us, because we're sick, Hashem is compassion. He's compassion. It comes to the same way maybe a person is in a fight with someone, they're mad at them, they expected more. But then they find out that that person is sick. So they have compassion and they want that person to get better. This is what compassion is all about. It's because of this that Hashem is compassionate with us, and He does this incredible miracle. He takes this light from a future time because He wants us to gain from it. Not like Shammai says. It's not like Shammai says. This is compassion. And that's what this entire Yom Tov is about. As we light the menorah, we should remember that there's tremendous, tremendous light of Hashem that's shining into our house. It's shining into every single part of our house. Every single person has part of the menorah. Every single person is part of this experience. We have to remember that. It's through the Torah and the mitzvahs that we build these vessels in order to be able to grow from this light, and we're able to perceive it in a way that's positive and helpful. And we have to know that the tzaddikim, they're the only ones, by attaching ourselves to the tzaddikim and learning their advice, no matter how distant we may be, but by attaching ourselves to the tzaddikim, they make sure that Torah will always be palatable, always be healthy for us, and we'll always be able to grow. And life will become meaningful, life will become successful, we'll have a purpose to life, we'll become happy and joyous, and forget about this world. The next world is something completely different. If we're able to, this world is only a corridor. It's only in preparation for the next world. It's only through the tzaddikim that help us through this world that we can get through it no matter what challenges we face. So as we light the menorah, we should think of the light of Hashem and think of the light of tzaddikim. We should daven that this light permeates our house and our entire being, and that we should attach ourselves to the tzaddikim and make a resolution to go in their ways. Thank Hashem for this incredible miracle that He has shined this light at this time, specifically when we're the weakest, because Hashem always wants us to be close to Him. He wants to teach us how to get close to Him when we're far. And may we all merit to have a very joyous, very simcha Yom Tov, a Chanukah full of light and shalom, and we all be zocheh that Mashiach should come, and that light that was hidden away for the future should finally be shared with these tzaddikim and with the world. Amen. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. I wish you all a freilichen, happy Chanukah to all of you. Thank you. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. And a freilichen Chanukah to you. Chanukah Sameach. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much.